It's a teaser of a Tuesday morning on this 11th day of January. Good morning to you. If you've joined us, you have joined Fifth Connection. This is Terry Martin, and we are live on this channel this morning. So much happening in our world, so much that we need to be prayerful over and prayerful about. But let's dive into the text because we are looking at what it takes to have stick-to-itiveness. What stick-to-itiveness is for the Bible believer, and how does he cultivate, in a sense, stickiness, sticking with Messiah. We looked at Hebrews chapter 5, verse 1 to 4 yesterday, and we continue right along in verse 5 to verse 10. And in this slice of the unfolding story, the writer is talking about the need for coupling humility with solidarity. Humility and solidarity are coupled in this Son, Jesus, and makes him suitable as a high priest, because if we ever needed a high priest, somebody to intercede for us, it is now. And the book is written to Christian Hebrews, people who were standing in great straits amidst great tensions, as if we are not in the midst of great tensions. But the challenge facing them had to do with defection. Do we go back to Egypt? Do we go back to onions and leeks rather than trust God in terms of our wanderings? In the Old Testament, it was wilderness wanderings. In the New Testament, these believers were in danger of going back to Judaism, going back to the old way, the old covenant. And so the writer takes time to point out how that Jesus is the superordinate Son. He's the superordinate one. He's not a subby. He's a superordinate one. He's not even a super subby. He's the superordinate Son of God in the first 4 verses of chapter 1. And then going on from verse 5 of chapter 1 to 10, verse 18, chapter 10, verse number 18, Jesus is the superordinate walk in terms of his work and in terms of his worth. And then he's the superordinate way, because in the last 3 chapters, the writer is going to talk through the importance of walking in the way, which is Christ. On this channel, we don't imbibe, we do our best not to imbibe isms or ideologies, be they Christian or not. We fight against them because we want to challenge believers to move to serpentine wisdom and not be caught in terms of an idolatry of ideas. So that's important this morning to understand what happens on the Fifth Connection. So coupled with solidarity is humility, which makes Jesus suitable as a high priest. And the question in this slice of the story is, how does who he is and what he does qualify him as chosen by God? Oh, we all love to be chosen. Many are the chosen frozen, and we need to be defrosted. And God has a way of defrosting us as his people. So we're going to look at 3 ideas that unfold in the paragraph from verse 5 to verse number 10. And the first idea has to do with humility. The second, solidarity. And the third, suitability. The first idea is about Our humility postures Jesus as a son and a priest forever. A forever high priest. He's not just one that comes and goes, one that appears on the scene and disappears, but he qualifies as a son and a priest forever. Remember, the writer is unfolding line by line of the story of how Jesus is the superordinate son. So he doesn't play his hand right in terms of one or two lines in the story as he talks through the sermon of 13 chapters and 303 verses. No, you see Jesus as a son and a priest forever, first of all, takes no glory to himself. There's no place, there's no need for self-glorification. Now, why no need for self-glorification? Well, he makes a decision. Verse 5. So also Christ did not exalt himself to be made a high priest. He didn't exalt himself. He didn't grab onto this as if it was his right. But he was appointed, verse 5 says, by God, who in the mouth of the writer to the Christian Hebrews quotes Psalm 110. And he says, you are a son, today I have begotten you. So Jesus had no need for self-exaltation. He was appointed by God in verse 5b into verse number 6. God chose him. Verse 6 says, as he says also in another place, a biblical writer says, you are a priest forever. Of no priest was that ever said in the Old Testament. But there was one who had a nice long name, Melchizedek. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, in sync with Melchizedek, in accordance with Melchizedek. We're going to do a couple of talks around Melchizedek because he's quite an enigmatic character. He appears on the scene for a short while and then just disappears again. He appears in Genesis 14, the good old Abe. And isn't that interesting how he shows up? And so we're going to spend some time talking about this enigmatic character. Remember, Jesus is better than angels. Of no angel did he say, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. He's better than angels. He's better than Moses. He's better than Torah. He's better than any and everything mentioned in the old order. He is the Son of God. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And that's why we need to read with understanding how Melchizedek fits into the picture and how Jesus is a priest after that particular order. We have many orders bestowed on significant others in this country. And they are given or conferred on people who have made great impact and impressions on the nation. But Jesus is a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So there's no need for self-glory because he was appointed by God. Secondly, you see, not only his humility that postures him, but his solidarity gives him affordances of choice. His solidarity in identifying with humanity gives him opportunities to make choices and to do great things and significant things in verse 7 and verse 8. So after humility follows solidarity. How does he show solidarity with who we are and what we are? Well, first of all, he was prayerful. He made prayerful supplications. And God answered him because of his piety, his commitment in verse number 7. In the days of his flesh, the days of his humanity, Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears. To whom? To God, to him who was able to save him from death. And he was heard because of his reverence, because of his allegiance to the cross. Now, lest we forget Gethsemane, the hymn writer says, lest I forget thine agony, lest I forget thy love for me, lead me to Calvary. Jesus, in his prayer life, showed great endurance and commitment as he depended upon his Heavenly Father. And he shows us what we need to do when we are in tight places. As a nation, we seem to be in a corner that we can't shake off just by claiming that we are being bullied, by claiming ignorance, by making unguarded statements. Oh, how we need wisdom in our day, in our own country, in our own land. Jesus showed his humility, showed his solidarity with humanity through his prayer life. But then in verse 8, he showed his solidarity, which gives him great affordances of choice because he learned obedience. As a son, he learned obedience. How? From the things he suffered. Verse 8, although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered. In his humanity, he learned what suffering looked like. And at the same time, he was God. He is this theanthropic person. A theanthropic person is one who is 100% God and at the same time 100% man. So in his humanity, he learns obedience through the real thing, and it's called suffering. The text goes on to say he's not only one who's given to humility and solidarity, but it qualifies him in terms of suitability. His suitability makes him the source of eternal salvation in verse 9 and verse 10 of the story. Note, he is the source of salvation. And then second, in verse 9 and 10, he sinks with Melchizedek. He sinks with Melchizedek. He is the source of salvation because Jesus was suited. When Jesus was suited, he became the source of eternal salvation to all those who obey him. For all those who would walk with him and come after him. He's not just the source, he's the eternal source. A source of eternal salvation. In other words, from Alpha to Omega, he can take care of saving us and keeping us. So we don't have to move around in great consternation. Faithful is he who called you, who will also do it. He'll keep you to the end. You are saved by grace through faith, and you are kept by grace through faith plus nothing. Oh, that is a confounding thought. That's why he can be trusted when we face tendency or temptability to defect, to give up, to throw in the towel. He is able to keep us. Do you find yourself in a tight place this morning? Do you find yourself in a situation that you seemingly can't get out of? Well, two questions for you. What is What is your humility index this morning? What does it look like on a scale of 1 to 10? Is it 0, or you're so full of yourself, you believe your own press reports and you are consumed with you? Me, myself, and I. What's your humility index like? What about a posture of coming before God and admitting your neediness? These Hebrew Christians, these Christian Hebrews stood in need of bending the knee and saying, Lord, persecution is great and we need your enabling. And then the second question, how does your solidarity with humanity show? Does it show? Does it show in terms of how you relate in your marriage, as a parent to your child, in the workspace? How do you identify with people? Or do you feel and think that you are hot stuff? You are the bee's knees. You're 10 foot beyond contradiction. Well, some of us feel we are very deep. Some of us are 6 feet under already because we're just not cutting it. Watch our impact on the culture. Watch the church's impact on the culture. Watch where the culture is and track back to where the church is. And you'll note a distinct connection between the two. As goes the church, so goes the culture, so goes the society, and not the other way around. A good biblical case can be made for that from Genesis 19, for example, and Matthew 5, because we are to be salt and light, staying off the deterioration that is inflicting us. Oh, how we need a touch from the heavens this morning. I trust that you've enjoyed your time with us. Please join us again tomorrow morning, same time, same place, for the next exciting episode. May God bless you.